Hello, everyone, and welcome to Food Management's On Demand series. This is a K-12 segment, and we are so lucky. We have Sherry Coleman Collins, registered dietitian with the National Peanut Board, here today with us. Welcome, Sherry.
Thanks, Tara. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and we have a lot to talk about. I have so many questions, and this is something that I think a lot of our viewers are going to be interested in. So, in terms of talking about peanut allergies in the schools and for kids, which is a broad subject, I wanted to talk about some of the advances that have been happening that I think are really exciting. So I wondered if you could kind of walk us through some of the new stuff with peanut allergies.
Sure. It's such a dynamic time in food allergies in general and peanut allergies specifically. So when I think of peanut allergies, I sort of think of three big buckets, right? I think of prevention and management and treatment. And in all of those areas, there have been a lot of big changes and advancements in the last 10 years and even in the last few years. One in particular on prevention. I know this is a little in advance of the K-12 years, but I think it's so exciting and it's so important that everyone should know. And that is that we now know that early introduction, so feeding infants peanut foods that are safe for them, actually can prevent peanut allergies. And in the past, guidelines were to avoid peanut foods until 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on the child and the country and their recommendations. But now the recommendations are overwhelmingly that children should be eating peanut foods before 12 months of age, and even as early as 4 to 6 months in most cases. So it's very exciting. And that prevention piece hopefully is going to shift the conversation that we later have about managing peanut allergies in schools.
Yes, so young kids who are toddlers now, they're going to be in school very soon. So
Right.
that is interesting. So parents, it's okay to give your baby peanut products, and it
Yes.
can help. It can prevent them being allergic to it. So
Right. Absolutely.
totally different and new from, I mean, I had my baby 12 years ago. She's 12 now. And I can remember they were like, no, peanuts don't give your baby peanuts. So that's something new. Very cool to know. Okay.
Yeah. And so then with, after prevention, I always think of then management. And we know that for managing peanut allergies and all allergies in schools is one of the top things on the mind of any K-12 operator, anybody in food service, and even, anyone in administration. They should be thinking about it. We know that managing food allergies, especially right now, has been particularly challenging because of supply chain issues and because of COVID and because of different ways that they're serving. It's great that schools can now serve free meals to any student, but that can make it challenging to identify the specific students with food allergies. So fortunately this year and in the last year and a half, there were a couple of specific tools that were released from the allergy societies in the US, specifically about managing food allergies during a time of COVID. And I think those are really great tools. And I'll be happy to send you the links if you want to share it with your readers.
Absolutely. And we will link down below so people can find it for sure.
Awesome. One of the things that came out of that, and I think we sort of always knew, but was reiterated and reinforced through these two documents, is that banning peanut foods or any food in schools is not medically necessary, which I think is something that for some people is still news. People think that it's, you can't serve peanut foods in a school where there's a child with a peanut allergy, but the reality is you can do that. And there are some specific tools that you should be using and things that you should be thinking about, but it's absolutely doable.
And I have seen kind of a shift in the conversation. And of course, just anecdotally, but like in the different school food service groups that I'm on Facebook, and I think you are in some of the same ones. Tips for school meals that rock. Shout out to Dana. But that is one where I was surprised to see, like, most people responding to a question about peanut allergies were saying like, well, we feel like maybe it's a false sense of security to have a peanut-free school because it's not a peanut-free world and somebody could still bring something in. And it's like these kids at all ages, if they're in school and they have a peanut allergy, they're going to need to learn to kind of take responsibility for themselves and know what to do. But I think that it's worth pointing out that peanut allergies are kind of special because if in most cases, if a child needs to be, if they're on a gluten-free diet, if they have celiac, they'll get a horrendous stomach ache later on in the day. And for all food service operations, peanut allergies, it's like something's going to happen right there. If someone's severely allergic, their throat is closing up, like it's very immediate. And I feel like that's why maybe schools kind of rush to say like, we're a peanut free campus, like, nope, just not going to deal with it. But it's like, you're really sort of creating this weird world where it's like, you're not teaching at that point.
Right. I have always described it as, a safety net. Like children need to learn at all ages, as you've described, to self-manage, right? And to self-advocate. And the sooner we start that process with our children, whether they have diabetes or they have food allergies, the more prepared they're going to be moving on into the world. And at the younger ages, they need to do that with a safety net. And elementary schools do an amazing job. I have an elementary school age child. They do such a great job of wrapping these children in protective layers emotionally and socially and academically. And they can do that for a food allergy too. We just have to work with them. We have to work with them. A child, obviously a 5-year-old is different than a 15-year-old, and they need different guardrails, but that still doesn't mean that you can't serve peanut foods in the school safely. One thing I would say is that, you alluded to the worst kind of reactions that can happen, which are like anaphylaxis is what that's called, when someone has a severe immediate reaction. And what we know is that peanut isn't the only food that can cause that. Milk and eggs are the most common allergens in childhood, in early childhood especially, and they can both cause anaphylaxis. And milk has been proven and shown to actually have been the result, the cause of some deaths with food allergies too. So I think that people have this
a milk-free school. So
no, and you never would, and you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't. We don't need to do that.
No.
So I think, I think there are a lot of myths and misperceptions around peanuts in particular. And one of those is this idea that just smelling peanut butter or being near peanut butter can cause anaphylaxis. And that's not true.
Right. And I think it's almost like an urban legend where they were saying like, peanuts can't be served on airplanes because it's a sealed thing. And if you open that bag, like somebody is going to die. It's like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think, peanuts have a very strong aroma. They smell really, and for those of us who love it, they smell really wonderful. And it's a strong aroma, but the volatile compounds that cause aroma are not the proteins that cause a food allergy reaction. So I think that's something people often get afraid of that. And there's a lot of anxiety around it. And for someone with food allergies or a parent of a child with a food allergy, I understand that anxiety as best I can, not having food allergies.
Yeah, certainly not placing the blame on somebody overcautious. Like that's not about shaming anybody for trying to do the best for your kid, clearly.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I also believe that, having the more education we have, the more power we have, the more control we have, right? In schools and in all food service operations, our goal should be using the evidence and the tools that we can and have at our disposal that actually reduce reactions, right? And creating this false sense of security, as you've described, doesn't do that. It's as you've said, and in most of the schools where I have had conversations with administrators or with food service operators, they say, that the children are still allowed to bring peanut foods in from school. And in some documented reactions, children in schools that were supposed to be peanut free had reactions because a staff member brought in something with a peanut. Right. So I think that's the thing is like you can't completely eliminate it from the environment. And the evidence doesn't show that that's actually preventive anyway. There's a research study that was done in Massachusetts that showed that schools that were peanut free had just as many reactions and needed epinephrine just as frequently as those that served peanut foods.
Okay. So it's like we've seen the hard data that's like this is not necessarily a solution, that you don't need to go down this road. And let's talk about that third bucket, which is the treatment of it.
Yeah. So treatment, this is a very exciting time for learning and understanding food allergies, how they happen, why they happen, where are some steps that can be interrupted in the reactive process. Also, there's some exciting research in desensitization or increasing tolerance and thresholds. And there's a lot of nuance in the language. But what we know is that now we have an FDA approved treatment for peanut allergies. The product is called Palforzia. And basically it's a peanut powder that someone with a peanut allergy eats in increasing doses over a period of time, and it increases the threshold at which they might have a reaction or have a severe reaction. It isn't a cure, so we're still searching for that
Is it in
elusive
a pill?
cure.
Is it
It
pill
isn't a
form?
pill.
And it's a
They
little.
open it and sprinkle it onto the food, though, I think, before they eat it. So it's not, you don't pop the pill. It's actually something that's mixed into something else and then eaten.
And
But
it's a prescribed amount that they're,
yes,
this is going to be okay. Very cool. That's
yes, yes.
something for
And
sure.
it's something that's done only under the care of a physician, right? An allergist, a board
You're not
certified
doing good
allergist.
stuff, right?
Right, exactly. Don't go buy peanut flour and try this at home. It's very carefully measured, very small doses, especially in the beginning. And children who have peanut allergies, many of them find that this is a very effective way to reduce anxiety because they don't worry as much about that tiny dose or tiny amount that can cause a severe reaction.
Definitely. And that kind of seems like, and I'm not sure if it's really in this like genre of medicine, but like holistic, like where you give a little bit of something of that you're allergic to, and then just by having that, you build up strength to it. And it almost, that's kind of like how vaccines work too. It's like you get a little bit of the bad stuff, and then you see what can be done.
Yeah, it's sort of this whole retraining the immune system, right? And
Right.
many people who have environmental allergies take, injections, right? So you
Yeah.
might take an injection that increases your tolerance of your environmental allergy. And so the oral immunotherapy is what this is called, oral
Okay.
immunotherapy. It works very similarly in concept. It's different because it's oral and it's in the gut, but it impacts the immune system in some similar ways.
Well, I think that's something that that a parent with a kid with possible allergy would want to look into this and maybe ask your doctor about this. And like obviously it's under the care of the doctor, as you mentioned. So we're not giving medical advice, but
No.
ask your doctor about this. That is really exciting. And kind of getting back to like the K through 12 operations side of things, what are some questions that you get most often from K through 12 operators?
Well, I think the one we've already discussed about airborne exposure is probably the number one. That's the most common myth that I hear and the most common question that I help people address.
Okay.
The other one is, I think, what if we want to serve peanuts and we haven't been serving peanuts in a long time? How do we reintroduce peanut foods to our schools? How do we
Okay.
prepare our community?
Mhm.
So that's actually one that I've been asked a lot lately, which is exciting and good news. Again, going back to sort of bans aren't necessary and they aren't, they probably aren't best practice. They're not recommended by the experts. So how can we reintroduce peanut foods and do that in a safe way and prepare our community?
Right, right. And
So
it's
that,
communicating with parents, and that's
yeah,
something that's ever present for people who feed kids. There are
yes.
parents there, and they need to let them know and communicate. And I am going to definitely put a link below also to peanutallergyfacts.org. And that is something you guys can see more videos of Sherry, and you can really take a deep dive into this. So there's just a lot of resources there for if you want to talk to your school community about it. And the benefits of peanuts are, well documented too. It's like, it's a great protein. I mean, and just people like it. I think people like peanut butter better than sun butter, because
Mhm.
I'm also noticing sometimes the lunch ladies will say our kids don't like the sun butter. So it's a delicious food. And recently I've been hooked on eating just dry roasted peanuts in the shell. And I don't know if it's the salt though that's making it so addictive, but it's like I'm not even kidding. In the middle of the night last night, I was eating from this bag of peanuts, like by my garbage can in the kitchen, like an elephant. Like I was just like, I can't stop. It's so good. I was like, I've got to tell Sherry about this because they're
Yeah.
so delicious. Like
Yeah.
the ones in the shell that are roasted and salty. I would like to not get as much salt, but they're just so good. And one of the best things about the Peanut Board is that they have offered me and other journalists the opportunity to actually go to a peanut field. And I think that's when I first met you. It might have been in Virginia. And I can remember you talking on a bus like about this very topic. And we
Mhm.
were going out to the peanut fields, and these are family farms. So cool. The people that we met are amazing. And this one particular farm in Virginia, I think it's Hope and Harmony Farm. I think that's what it's called. But this farm has been in this family for hundreds of years, and it's just so cool. I think they got the land from King George, like in the 1700s. There really a lot of history there. And then when you eat them out of the field, that's an amazing experience too. So I recommend that for anybody, like for an experience to see how they grow. Like it's really cool for sure.
Yeah. We have a lot of information on our website at nationalpeanutboard.org about how peanuts grow. Many people don't even know that they grow under the ground. So
Right.
that's that's sort of a fun fact for people. They don't grow on trees or bushes, they grow under the ground. Yeah. So peanut agriculture is fascinating and interesting. And peanuts are a truly sustainable product. They use less water than any other nut, when it comes to production. They actually add nitrogen back into the soil. So they're very good for the soil. Many people plant them in rotation, and then they have to use less chemical fertilizers in the next crop because the peanuts have just really sort of put a lot of nutrition into the soil for the coming crops.
Oh yeah, and that's like part of the crop rotation. And I think I
Mhm.
even saw like someplace where these fields are cotton right now, and these are peanuts. It's really interesting. Agriculture is just something that like I love to learn about because I don't know much about it, and it's each thing I'm like, wow, that's cool. So
Yeah, I love what you said about the family that you were talking about. That's the Popes. So the Popes have a beautiful farm that's been in their family for I think 6 generations, and it's just amazing to see this family history and legacy. Again, that's another piece of sustainability, right? If
yeah,
farmers can't be sustainable on their land and be able to pass it from generation to generation, that impacts all of us. Less than 2% of Americans actually farm,
yeah,
and they feed the 98% of us who don't. So, I think there are a lot of misperceptions about farming, and for peanut farmers in particular, I know the most about them. It is
mhm.
a family affair. They live on their farms overwhelmingly. They're very conscientious. They love what they do. They're passionate about protecting the environment. So I think, if you want to learn more, definitely visit our website.
Definitely. That for sure sounds like a great place to start. And boy, I could talk to you forever. I've got just a million questions. Always do. But as usual, so great to talk to you. And we are going to put all those resources down below for people to check out. And hopefully this will help shine some light on this topic. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks, Tara. I really appreciate it.